Today, Spain is the fourth largest country in Europe, spanning over 195,000 square miles, sharing borders with Portugal to the west and France and Andorra to the north, as well as the Balearic Islands in the Mediterranean and the Atlantic Ocean. These Canary Islands are also under the control of Spain, but this same Spain controlled this entire area of 5 million square miles at the beginning of the 19th century, which stretched from North America to Argentina in South America, and not only that, but the Pacific Ocean. On the other hand, in East Asia, the Philippines was also under the control of the Spanish Empire. Here the question arises, how did a small country finally build such a big empire, and then what happened that it became the world's first and fastest growing superpower within a few years? This is the story of a country that became the fastest word superpower in human history, and then its downfall happened at the same speed. The truth is that in today's video we will know how Spain became the world's first superpower, and then how the world's first superpower grew and collapsed. Let's go on. In the 8th century, when today's Spain was under the control of Muslims, and it was then called Al-Andalus. Muslims ruled Spain for nearly 800 years. It is now known that in these 800 years there was a lot of development in science, philosophy and architecture in Spain, but the Muslim Empire constantly faced resistance from the Christians, which is called the Reconquista. By the end of the 15th century, the Christians had taken back control of 90% of Spain, and the control of the Muslims was only up to Granada, so today's Spain in the 15th century. Divided into 3 Christian and 1 Islamic kingdoms, then in 1479 Queen Isabella of the Kingdom of Castile and King Ferdinand and II of Aragon married each other to further strengthen Christian control and finally drive the Muslims out of Spain. After defeating Muslim armies at the Battle of Granada in 1492 and taking full control of Spain, these Christian kingdoms now had the opportunity to explore the rest of the world and take advantage of new international trade routes right through Spain. Also, the Portuguese Empire had already explored the Atlantic Ocean about 70 years ago and discovered trade routes from under Africa to South Asia and East Asia, due to which it was slowly breaking the trade monopoly of the Ottoman Empire in what was then Asia. All the trade of the Middle East and Europe was controlled by the Ottoman Empire. In 1480, Christopher Columbus, an Italian explorer, proposed the idea to the Spanish Empire that if the world is round, instead of passing through Africa to go to Asia, if you go to the western side of Europe, you can still reach Asia, and that too by a short route. At that time, no one knew what was across the Atlantic Ocean. Queen Isabella and King Ferdinand and Columbus liked this idea very much, because they wanted the Spanish Empire to discover its trade routes as soon as possible, like the Portuguese Empire. On August 3, 1492, Christopher Columbus set sail on 3 small ships in Palos de la Frontera, Spain. He left and after a 2-month voyage reached this island. He thought that he might have reached an island in East Asia. He named the island San Salvador and then sailed through the Bahamas, northern Cuba and Hispaniola in 1493. He returned to Spain and told Queen Isabella and King Ferdinand that there were many undiscovered islands on the western side that no European had yet reached. Sent on this western voyage, this time Columbus discovered all the Caribbean islands and met the locals there and returned to Spain by 1496. Then in 1498, Columbus came here for the 3rd time. This time he visited Trinidad, Venezuela and South America. Discovered the northern side. Until now, Columbus thought he was discovering some undiscovered islands in Asia, but on this 3rd voyage he realized that he had actually discovered an undiscovered island. Columbus 1502 I left for the 4th and last time on this voyage. This time he discovered Central American countries such as Panama, Jamaica, Antivers and Nicaragua, but during this time he fell seriously ill and had to return to Spain and then died in 1506. Although Columbus could not discover the small route from Europe to Asia, but the discovery of this new continent caused a stir in the whole world, and this discovery of Columbus was going to change the trajectory of the whole world, taking the same discovery to Spain and Portugal. A problem would also arise as to who would have control of this new land. The Treaty of Tortoise was signed between the 2 empires, according to which the world outside of Europe was divided into 2 lines, the yellow line. The entire area in the color went under the control of the Spanish Empire, and the entire area in the middle went under the control of the Portuguese Empire. So despite being in South America, Brazil became part of the Portuguese Empire, and today where Spanish is spoken throughout South America. Brazil is the only country in South America where Portuguese is spoken. After this treaty, the Spanish Empire began to build permanent settlements on the new continent. Gradually, until the year 1515, the rest of the islands of the Caribbean and Central were settled by bringing Spanish people, and Cuba became the headquarters of the Spanish Empire in this region. When they reached the islands, they got some reports that there was a very powerful and rich civilization on the western side, and in order to find it, in 1518, an explorer named Hernán Cortés landed on the coastline of Mexico with some of his companions. At the time, Mexico was ruled by the Aztec Empire, whose capital was Tenochtitlan, a city built on top of a lake. I was placed in New Mexico City, and this city became the administrative capital of the Spanish Empire. The local people did not have immunity, and as a result millions of people died from these diseases. The Spanish Empire had just taken control of the northern side when they got the news that there were many advanced civilizations like the Aztecs down in South America. At that time, on the western side of South America, along with the Andes mountain range, they had the reign of civilization in the area where Peru, Ecuador and Bolivia are today. Perhaps the biggest role in their victory was the diseases that they brought with them from Europe, because most of the local people died from these diseases due to lack of immunity, so few people were left to fight the Spanish, and as a result, Spanish armies could easily capture cities, so by 1530 the Spanish Empire had taken control of the entire yellow highlighted area. Explorer Hernando Rizzuto traveled to Florida, Georgia and Texas, but the Spanish Empire did not officially build any colonies here. So while all this was happening in America, on the other side of the Pacific Ocean, Spanish explorer Ferdinand and Magellan did this in Eastern Asia. Discover the islands we know today as the Philippines. By 1570, the Spanish Empire had taken full control of the Philippines, and from here it was keeping an eye on Aegean geopolitics. They were in need of resources and money, and therefore they were aggressively looking for resources in South America. The Spanish Empire found many gold and silver mines in Mexico, Bolivia and Peru, from which gold and silver were extracted and sent to Spain. By the end of the 16th century, so much gold was coming to Spain from South America that it was running out of storage space. 80% of the world's gold and silver supply was going to Spain. And at the same time, a strange hybrid society was being formed by the arrival of the Spanish people. On the one hand, there was the mestizo population, which were basically people who came from Spain and married local women. Their children were called mestizas. The crews were basically the children whose parents were Spanish. They were born here in the United States. They were just sent here to roll, so it was a kind of rolling class. By the 17th century, there had been a lot of conflict between these three classes. Creuses and mestizas used to feel that all these areas were no longer ruled by Spain. If only those who were born here should come, then these internal problems had already started in the Spanish Empire, and the Spanish Empire was under threat externally. Meanwhile, the British and French explorers were arriving in North America, and they, but while building their own colonies, Britain also started trying to take control of Jamaica and the rest of the Caribbean islands from the Spanish Empire, and from 1664 to 1660. During the next century, the Spanish Empire only expanded to California and Texas and built cities such as Los Angeles, San Diego, and San Francisco. When Napoleon attacked Spain and occupied the whole of Spain within a year, the Creuse and Mestizo population in South America saw the opportunity to gain independence from the Spanish Empire, and they revolted against the Spanish Empire. Wars of independence started in all these areas between 1888 and 1810. First, in 1816, Argentina declared independence, then in 1818, and in 1919, Colombia also gained independence from the Spanish Empire. 2 years later, Mexico was also freed from the control of the Spanish Empire, and finally, in 1824, Peru also declared independence, so the 400-year-old Spanish Empire collapsed in just 8 years at the end of the 19th century. Only Cuba, Puerto Rico, some islands of the Caribbean and the Philippines were left under the control of the Spanish Empire. Finally, in 1895, the War of Independence began in Cuba, in which the USA was also involved, and the Spanish Empire surrendered 3 years later. And these last remaining countries also fell from the control of the Spanish Empire. For 400 years, the mighty Spanish Empire, which had ruled half of the world and controlled 80% of the world's gold supply, had now collapsed, leaving only this small island. What we know as Spain today was the story of Spain. Make more videos like this. Here are all the sources from where we have consulted for this video. Your comments will be waiting because the next video will be on your suggestion. Take care.